Minister, and I call Mr. Philip McGuigan.
Mr. Speaker, the Fuel Poverty Strategy consultation closed on the 6th of March. Analysis of the responses to the consultation has been completed and a summary will be published later this summer. Informed by the consultation, my Fuel Poverty Strategy team is continuing to discuss and agree various aspects to the final strategy with other officials both within my department and across government, and I plan to bring the final strategy to the Executive for agreement by the end of the year.
Mr. McGuigan.
Further to that, Minister, can I ask what effect, if any, the reinstatement of the winter fuel payment will have on the fuel poverty strategy?
Of course it will have an impact, but this is something that I've said from the start, that the plan would always be flexible to take into consideration the fact that these are not issues that we deal with by ourselves, but we need to work with the UK Government and of course other stakeholders as well.
Philip Brett.
Speaker, Minister, fuel poverty is a scourge in our society, and in my constituency of North Belfast, one of the best ways to tackle that had been through the Affordable Warmth Scheme. I understand the Minister made a bid to the Department for Finance in June monitoring round to ensure that we could continue to roll out this scheme. Could the Minister outline, given the importance of this, did the Minister of Finance meet your bid?
Minister.
No, that bid was not met, and that's disappointing because these are actions that we can take that will actually make a difference, will actually make sure that we're making a change in people's lives. So I hope that if members are concerned about this issue, that they will lobby the Finance Minister, lobby others to ensure that we can have that funding in place and make a difference for the people we represent.
Armstrong.
280,000 households in Northern Ireland facing fuel poverty. One solution is to make use of surplus renewable energy or electricity, particularly from wind. Will the Minister update and expand the energy support schemes to include an option to install technological solutions that harness surplus renewable energy in a way that directly assists households most in need, such as the Energy Cloud system introduced in OMA with the Housing Executive?
Well, she'll be aware that the energy strategy and how we take that forward is a matter for the Minister for the Economy, but I am of course happy to work with her to make sure that we can deal with this issue, because I think it is right that we look at the options that are available to us. Well, she's shaking her head. It is a responsibility of the Minister for the Economy. That is a fact, but I'm willing to work with other executive ministers to make sure that we can actually deliver. And the fuel poverty strategy, of course, will be a cross-departmental strategy.
Mark Durkin.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, have you been or will you be making the argument in the Executive that any abhorrent consequential arising from the UK Government's £13.2 billion Warm Homes plan to tackle fuel poverty is ring-fenced to tackle fuel poverty here, where fuel poverty is worst?
Minister.
I'll absolutely be making that case, and I met with the UK Government Minister in relation to this just a couple of weeks ago, and as he has outlined, there is a significant amount of funding that's being made available on a UK-wide basis, and I certainly will be making the case for this money to be ring-fenced so that we can get the full benefit of it here in Northern Ireland for the purpose for which it was intended.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, through their community involvement and cohesion strategy, the Northern Ireland Housing Executive creates opportunities to enter dialogue, build capacity and confidence, and empower communities to get the best outcomes for their neighbourhoods and to contribute to greater community cohesion. The Housing Executive's Good Relations Officers collaborate with local community and voluntary organisations to foster a community-led approach to promoting positive race relations within and between diverse ethnic groups and the wider community.
Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. Can I direct the Minister to the Building Sustainable Communities programme, which was a programme from his department that has 6 areas, one being in my constituency of North Antrim in the Dury Road area, where that programme was able to bring together people from the Protestant community, Catholic community and travelling community, and was a major success in Dury Road and in Ballymena indeed. Would he consider some other pilot scheme of a similar ilk to help and assist and support communities like Ballymena who have many concerns?
I thank the member for the work that he's been doing in his local area. He's been on the ground, he's been talking, and importantly, he's been listening to concerns rather than just lecturing people. And I think that's the approach that we need to see more of. He is right, we did have the Building Successful Communities programme in place from 2012 to 2017. We will be getting a report on that shortly, which will outline the benefits, lessons learned and recommendations. I'm going to be looking at that, and I hope that I will be in a position to move that forward. However, it will require support from other executive ministers.
Minister, earlier today I received an email from a constituent whom I won't name, but he emailed me to say on Friday evening a group of people knocked on his front door to inquire if they would support an upcoming protest about housing for local people in the area. He said politely that he wouldn't. His wife had emigrated here and he felt uncomfortable with the tone of the people at his door and some of the other protests. Would you, as Minister for Housing, take this opportunity to distance yourself from some of the scenes we have seen, even when they haven't been violent, but protests outside the homes of people calling for what has been termed local housing? This is deeply troubling. Are you troubled by it, Minister, and what are you doing about it?
Of course, we do not want to see any sort of intimidation whatsoever, and what I want to do is make sure that we have the homes that we need in Northern Ireland. I also want to make sure that we're listening to concerns. We don't want to go to either extremes here. We don't want to pretend that there isn't an issue in regards to housing. We don't want to pretend that there isn't an issue in terms of some of the practices that mayors have employed either. There are concerns around provision and affordability of housing. And by the way, I hear that from members right across the chamber. That isn't something that we should ignore. However, of course, we must stand against any sort of intimidation whatsoever, and I'm very happy to provide that clarification to the member.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the previous law change has allowed landlords to split houses into three, which in turn in Ballymena has allowed a number of HMO houses then to go by the wayside because they no longer fall into the category of an HMO. Minister, what steps will you take to tighten up on this issue and also to ensure that local councils are responsible for the HMOs in their area?
The member's right to highlight the fact that these are primarily responsibilities for local councils. However, if he has specific examples he would like me to look at, I'd be happy to do it.
Speaker, question number 3.
Speaker, I plan to award an FTC loan to Maple and May to support the delivery of the first 300 homes. This will be in addition to the funding available to support the provision of other intermediate and social housing in line with the housing supply strategy. Discussions are progressing well and I'm moving towards agreeing the terms of the loan. This includes finalising the value and private finance contribution and the delivery locations for these new homes, and I will ensure members are kept updated as these matters are finalised.
Okay. I thank the Minister for that update, and indeed we received a briefing on intermediate rent at committee recently, and I think it does particularly benefit lower income households in areas of higher rent which don't have points also for social housing. Can the Minister advise us when can we expect these homes to be built?
Well, Mr. Speaker, funding will be released in early 2026. We expect construction to take around 12 months, which means by the end of this mandate we will have begun those 300 homes. This is an innovative product, hasn't been done before. We've brought it to this point and we're going to deliver.
Can call you and thank the Minister for his answers. And Minister, given this is a new and innovative product, how will the Department ensure that the homes being built will match need and will be built where they are most needed?
Well, it'll be done through a fair and transparent process. We want to see them right across Northern Ireland, but in locations where high rental prices and high demand exist. And once the detail on delivery locations and the final funding package has been confirmed, we'll be updating you on the details.
Michelle Guy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, can I ask you to clarify if you believe that allocation based on being drawn out of a hat is an appropriate method for allocating future intermediate rent properties?
I don't think I've ever said that we're going to draw anything out of a hat. As we've said, it will be done on the basis of a fair and transparent application process.
Cost of housing for the open in the North Coast reaching astronomical levels in the thousands for a week's stay, driving people out of homes and making housing unaffordable. Does the Minister agree with me this is further evidence of the need for rent controls and rent reductions?
No, I don't, because I don't think we should use that one specific example to drive policy for all of Northern Ireland. And secondly, rent controls have shown by the evidence that we have that would actually make the situation worse, with more landlords and more properties leaving the market and actually pushing up rent for everybody else. So unfortunately, the member is wrong on that issue, but at least he is consistent, because he's consistently wrong.
Jerry Kelly.
Question 4.
Sure.
A number of approaches were considered in developing the strategy. However, the three-pillar approach that has been adopted by the Executive, informed by evidence, will allow for a holistic approach that focuses most effectively on the root causes of poverty and its impacts. It allows interventions to have an impact across all age groups, providing deliverable and sustainable interventions that will make a meaningful difference to people's lives.
Going back to listen to Asakt and Fraggle Gujisha. The Minister will note the lifestyle framework is intended to provide coherent life stage specific support from early ages to old age. But stakeholders, as you will know, are arguing that the draft has diluted its ambition. Can the Minister outline if the draft includes robust measurable commitments for each life stage? And does the strategy maintain genuine co-design input?
Yes, this has been a genuine co-design process, and as a result, many of the actions that the co-design group were calling for are actually in the strategy. And yes, we will have measurable actions and measurable targets as well. That will all be part of the action plan.
Deborah Erskine.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for the work he is doing on anti-poverty. He was the Minister to bring forward a strategy out for consultation. I don't see too many others having done so. But has any impact assessment been carried out on Labour's changes proposed in the Green Paper, and how these may impact upon poverty?
Well, yes, we had completed the impact assessment on the government's proposals, and then they have obviously now been changed. I have met with Minister Timms 3 times over the course of the last week. It's obviously important that we do work together on these issues, but I am concerned at media reports across the UK that this will still result in hundreds of thousands of people being driven into poverty. So I'll continue to engage, but it does highlight the fact that controlling poverty is not only for the Northern Ireland Executive. It will take collaboration from other stakeholders as well to make sure that we can meaningfully tackle this issue.
McAllister.
For his answers so far. I just want to go back to the issue of the life cycle approach to the strategy, and if the Minister could elaborate on the evidence that you undertook to adopt the 3-pillar approach, and whether other jurisdictions and their models were looked at, such as Scotland and the Republic of Ireland.
Yes, so there's an extensive evidence base, and this was changed as we moved through this, as it was acknowledged that a life cycle approach would have required developing separate actions to lift children out of poverty, whereas it's widely acknowledged that it's impossible to lift children out of poverty without lifting families out of poverty. That's what we are focused on doing. That's what the evidence did, and I'm more than happy to point her in the right direction in terms of the significant evidence base that we have for the decisions that we've taken.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, a quarter of all children, about 109,000, live in relative poverty here in the North. The Children's Commissioner Chris Quinn and Bernardo's think the strategy should be rewritten so it can genuinely reflect the needs of children in low-income families. How many children are you aiming to bring out of poverty in the next 3 years because of your strategy, Minister?
Well, the strategy actually is trying to do exactly that, through minimising the risk of people falling into poverty, helping people deal with the impacts of poverty, and importantly assisting people out of poverty. Now, that's not something that we can do by ourselves. It will take the work of the Northern Ireland Executive, not just the Department for Communities, but the UK Government and other stakeholders as well. But of course, I would simply say there's a consultation process ongoing, and if the member has concrete actions, costed plans that he wants to put into that, I look forward to reading his consultation response.
Andrew McMurray.
Speaker, question number 5.
There are no plans for the further development of Narrow Water Castle at this time.
Minister, given its location and given the potential with the Narrow Water Bridge project and being finished, would you consider working with executive colleagues and the Shared Island Unit to maybe look at development of the site?
I'm always happy to look at options that are available to us so that we can improve the site. However, he will be aware of the significant pressure that we are under in terms of Historical Environment Division. I have significantly increased the budget for capital projects this year, but there are a lot of works in line. But of course, I'm more than happy to discuss this further with the member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answers so far. Does the Minister agree with me on the importance of ensuring that any work at Narrowwater Castle is sensitive to the memory of the 18 British soldiers brutally killed by the IRA at Narrowwater on the 27th of August 1979 in an ambush, one of the deadliest murderous attacks by the IRA?
Well, the member's absolutely right, and we should be sensitive to that, because unfortunately there are far too many people that are insensitive to what took place there, and won't even allow a simple memorial to stand there. So I can give her my assurance that we will do everything that we can to make sure that any development in that area is sensitive to the memory of those who were murdered at that location.
Very shortly, the whole question 7, please.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I combine questions 7 and 11. Given the pressure on resources across executive departments, I decided to move forward on the development of the social inclusion strategies on a phased basis. An announcement on the timetable for the way forward on gender equality and sexual orientation strategies will follow shortly.
Minister, I'm sure you're familiar with the principle, nothing about us without us. And in light of that, can you explain why you're proceeding with this strategy without meeting the co-design groups?
Well, there is no progression of these strategies at this time, because we're looking at the way forward. Obviously, we are dealing with the anti-poverty strategy at the minute. I will be bringing the disability strategy to the executive very shortly, and then I can decide the best way forward. This will require additional staff and commitment, so that all needs to be taken into consideration.
Minister, the North previously had a gender equality strategy that ended in 2016. Can you outline how the upcoming strategy differs from it, or how it intends to build on the work of the previous strategy?
There is no strategy currently in place, as I said in response to the previous member, and we'll decide the way forward on that in the coming weeks.
Brooks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will have welcomed, like me, the clarity from the Supreme Court around the definition of a woman being based on biological sex. Can he confirm that any strategy he brings forward will respect that ruling?
I think it's always important that administrators adhere to the law. So on that basis, yes, of course, any strategy that comes forward from my department to the executive will ensure that it is respected in that way.
Doug Beattie.
Please.
Mr. Speaker, 187 of our most important monuments are protected as historic monuments in state care and are managed and conserved by the HED within my department. They're protected through regular inspections, conservation, maintenance and repairs, which are carried out by our in-house conservation works team or through capital investment works. And I've provided additional resources this year to increase the staffing levels of the conservation team who maintain these monuments from 16 to 40.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, I'm genuinely concerned about our historical heritage. In my own constituency, we have lost the Warringtown Grange and Rath, which was ripped up, the Ballynatagat Court tomb, nearly 2,000 years old, which was ripped up. And of course, I've raised in this House many times the issue of Knock Ive and a wind turbine sitting on top of a 2,000-year-old burial ground. When is the HED going to use its statutory powers of enforcement to get that wind turbine off one of our historical sites?
Well, we've discussed this previously, and my understanding is that that is primarily for the Council to take forward in terms of enforcement. I understand there's a lot of background to this issue, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with him further, but unfortunately we are bound by the law as it stands, and we have to respect the role of the Council in this.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Minister, how much is financially invested into this area via HED? Thank
Well, I have recognised the difficulties that exist in terms of HED and what it is that we are trying to preserve right across Northern Ireland at so many sites. And so I have increased the opening revenue budget for HED this year to £12.8 million. That's an increase of £2.6 million from last year, because I believe we have a duty as custodians of these sites to make sure that we fund them properly. And once we lose them, we can't get them back, and that's why I've taken action to protect them.
Malcolm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, the Kirkcowan Harbour is an example of a non-dwelling that is currently falling apart. Despite contact from the HED with the owner, appears no action has been taken. At what stage of dilapidation will the HED step in and take legal action to protect this historic landmark?
I'm more than happy to look into that issue. I don't have the detail with me, but I think it is important that we ensure that those who are responsible take action. I'll be happy to chase that up for the member and come back to him directly.
Jane.
The Employment Support Programme currently supports people with disabilities in work. It closed to new entrants in 2006. My department launched a 12-week public consultation on an option to cease funding the scheme, which closed on the 17th of February, and officials are currently considering responses, but no decision has been made on the future of the scheme.
Just a few weeks ago, when announcing his budget allocation for 25-26, the Minister promised to bring forward an employment programme, the most extensive of recent times. Can the Minister give us some details of that programme, or when we're likely to see a timetable of when it might be published?
I look forward to doing that, and it will be very soon, because I believe it's important that we do actually help people get back into work. That's one of the ways that we can take proper action to tackle poverty, and I look forward to announcing that soon.
Mr. Speaker, question 10, please, Minister.
Responses to the impact of second home or holiday home ownership in other jurisdictions within the UK has involved the provision of additional powers for local councils to amend taxation rates applied to them. The consideration of similar powers here would be a matter for DOF to take forward, but I do recognise that this is a matter of concern in specific areas, specifically in relation to affordability. I know there are a range of possibilities for us to see what action can be taken, and I'm currently carrying out research on second home ownership to help improve our understanding of the issues.
Ms. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, thank you for your answer. It's been a number of months now since I had an adjournment debate on this issue, and still many feel like there is little change. Do you think your department is dealing with this issue with a profound sense of urgency? And can you detail any conversations you've had perhaps with my constituents who are struggling profoundly to find adequate housing?
I absolutely recognise how difficult this is, and that's why I have brought forward a housing supply strategy, because that is at the heart of all of this, though I do recognise there are particular issues in her own area. I can assure her that housing officials have met with DFE and DFI to scope research into the specific issue of short-term holiday lets and the potential impacts that there might be within the planning system, and certainly I'll do all that I can to move this forward to make sure we get into a sensible place.
Alan Robertson.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister outline what scope local councils have to deal with the issue of short-term holiday lets?
Yes, and councils do have ability in this area, and indeed Belfast City Council, for example, have planning policy around this issue, so it is within the gift of other councils to follow suit and do likewise. These are local issues, it's why we have local government, and we should respect the role that local councillors and councillors have to play in this matter, but we stand ready to help and assist in any way we can.
Peter Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 12.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that Bangor Marine has today begun to establish the Marine Gardens Works compound with site cabins and facilities for the construction workers starting to come on site. And as of today, some additional enabling works have also been commenced. Erection of hoardings and construction of Phase 1 are expected to commence over the summer, and Bangor Marine will issue a more detailed timeline for their proposals in the coming weeks. The Marine Gardens car park will remain open during the busy holiday period.
Mr. Martin.
I want to thank the Minister for his answer and also for his continued commitment to the project. Minister, over, say, the next 6 months, just to the end of this year, what tangible things might we see in terms of the project itself for the Marine Gardens?
Well, the member has been a strong supporter of this development for many years, and I'm pleased that we will start to see work begin on site today. And I can inform him that over the next 6 months he will see that ramp up, especially as we head in to later on in the year, where that work will continue to make a real difference there, so that we can start to see phase 1 begin to be developed.
Dr. Regan.
Oh, question 13.
Mr. Speaker, I want to condemn again the recent violence and the harm it's inflicted on communities affected by the actions of a disruptive minority, but I can confirm that neither my department nor Sport NI has been contacted directly by sports clubs or organisations who have been impacted by the recent violence, and as a result I'm not currently aware of any specific support needs.
Thank you very much indeed. I should have made a declaration of interest, apart from my shock of being asked for question 13, as of course a close relationship with Larne Swimming Club. Minister, obviously with some swimming clubs, and particularly Larne, now that they've been reopened, they've lost a considerable amount of revenue due to the violence that was there. Would there be any indication of whether Sport NI would be able to give some assistance, particularly for the support of members of staff within these clubs, many of whom are on low-level contracts?
Yeah, well, first of all, can I put on a record my thanks to those involved with Larne Swimming Club. They've been, as he will be aware, directly in contact with me, and we have been certainly united in our views in terms of the wrongs that took place over that time. We've condemned the violence together. I'm really pleased to work closely with them, and I look forward to seeing them on site again soon. Like I said, I haven't received any specific proposals, but if certain help is needed, we're happy to look into that. I also think there might be some additional routes that can go down in terms of compensation and as a result of some of the criminal damage that has been done. I'd be happy to work with him and assist in that.
On topical questions, Daniel Crossan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, the draft anti-poverty strategy has been criticised for lacking specific, measurable and time-bound targets. Following the consultation process, will you commit to including such targets in the final strategy?
Already have.
Crossan.
Thank you, Minister. As you'll appreciate, this is a very serious issue for everybody concerned, and Bernardo's and other stakeholders have been out criticising you and your department today for the failure to do what you had committed to do in this strategy. 50 organisations have written to us calling for the strategy to be withdrawn. Minister, the First Minister herself has said the strategy should probably go further. So what specific changes or proposals did she or her party colleagues make during those executive discussions?
Well, look, I'm not going to go into exactly who said what, because executive conversations are confidential. However, there was the required level of consensus that meant that this could go out to public consultation. All executive ministers had the opportunity to submit their ideas and things that they believed that could have been delivered within their own departments, or they could have commented on anything else. They could have asked for the inclusion of anything else, and I believe that I answered all the questions that were put to me on that, and it is now up to others to explain their positions, having given consent for this to go to publication.
Anya Murphy.
I'd like to thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, what discussions have you had with Public Services Ombudsman around its decision to launch an own initiative inquiry into the Housing Executive?
I haven't had any requests to meet with them. I am concerned about some of the things that I've heard, but it's right that the investigation takes place. In terms of my own involvement in that, I'll be open to hearing from what they would like and what evidence they would like from the department, but I will wait for them to ask for any evidence that may be forthcoming from me or the department.
That's perfect.
I'd like to thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, the Ombudsman had outlined a number of serious concerns. Minister, were you aware of the seriousness of these issues leading up to the Ombudsman stepping in?
Look, I've been aware of many of the problems that exist within the Housing Executive in terms of not being able to do some of the things they would like to do, which is as a result of the lack of funding. That's why I've been working so hard to make sure that we do see a change in the revitalisation of the Housing Executive so that we can borrow against our assets and put in place many of the improvements that are needed. I haven't a full sight yet of all of the issues or complaints, but I'll certainly not be found wanting when it comes to that.
Donnelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for his answer so far. Could I ask the Minister if he's asked the UK Government to contribute to the Northern Ireland Football Fund as part of the comprehensive spending review?
Yes, I've met with the Secretary of State in relation to this. We've had a number of conversations about this, and I've made it clear that when it comes to the funding of sport, especially whenever direct funding is being given to one sport within a broader package of measures, that should be done on a fair and equitable basis, and there shouldn't be special treatment for anyone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for that. Could I ask the Minister what action he is taking to deliver the necessary investment to meet the needs and realise the potential of all regional and sub-regional sports stadia in Northern Ireland?
We'll ultimately be aware that in terms of the Casement Park project, that is for the GAA to identify their strategic need. I've asked for that to be looked at again in the light of rising costs and the current financial situation that we find ourselves in. In relation to what was the sub-regional stadia programme, now the Northern Ireland Football Fund, after years of delay, by the way, for no apparent purpose, for no reason other than political purposes, I have ensured that it has moved forward, and I look forward in the coming weeks to making an announcement on how that can be taken forward.
Minister, as Minister for Communities responsible for developing the Irish language strategy, why are you joining the legal case opposing Irish language signage?
Well, the member makes the case for me. He rightly says that I am the Minister responsible for the development of the Irish language strategy. Therefore, it is a cross-cutting issue. Yeah. So even Sinn Féin are now making the point for me that this is an issue that is cross-cutting. And so I think it is important that if something is significant, controversial or cross-cutting, it goes before the Executive. And I thank the member for making the case for me today.
Minister Delargy.
Well, Minister, I think it's very disappointing that actually nothing has been delivered in terms of the strategy, despite the co-design group having concluded their work months ago. Do you not think that it would be better in your role as Minister that you focused on developing an Irish language strategy and implementing that, rather than involving yourself in cases opposing Irish language implementation?
Well, I would rather not involve myself in cases like this, but there's a reason why I have to, because the Minister for Infrastructure has taken it upon herself to go against the law, and that's the very strong advice that I have received. And nobody is above the law, not the Infrastructure Minister, not Sinn Féin. If something is significant, cross-cutting or controversial, it comes to the Executive. This wasn't done, so I gave time. I allowed the Minister opportunity to rectify the situation without going through the courts. Unfortunately, this is now where we are ending up. In terms of the Irish language strategy, the cross-departmental working group has been set up because I want to make sure we can be in a place where we can preserve and where we can promote language, but that cannot be at a cost that is detrimental to the public person, detrimental to other things that we want to do. That's why we're putting this group together, to make sure that any actions are actually affordable.
Morris Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask the Minister, during the recent government announcement, the National Lottery and the life-changing projects it supports represents a national institution of which we should all be proud, and whether he believes that it is the responsibility of governments, including the Northern Ireland Executive, to safeguard and support its continued impact for good?
Mr. Speaker, I've certainly seen the benefit that some of the funding from National Lottery projects can have, not just in my own constituency, but right across Northern Ireland. And certainly you'll not be surprised to hear that I have a number of concerns around how prolific gambling is in our society. But certainly if we do have those proceeds that come from the National Lottery that can be used for good causes, I'm certainly happy to make sure that they can be used in a way that lines up with some of the objectives that we have.
Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just asked the Minister to outline what steps his department has taken to ensure that the National Lottery funding continues to reach communities most in need across Northern Ireland, and how he intends to maximise its potential in supporting social, cultural and economic regeneration.
Sure.
That's why it's so important that we ensure that it's aligned with our objectives, and I think in particular Sport NI do a very good job in that, in making sure that we do have that joined up coordinated approach so that the funding that is available helps with the things that we're actually trying to achieve.
David Honeyford.
Mr Speaker, Minister, since you were present at the launch of the IFA training facility in Galgorm, what do you make today of reports today that the IFA doesn't have the money to build this training centre?
And I don't think that's particularly new news. I was at the launch, but ultimately it's up to the IFA and other partners to ensure that the funding is available for that. There are lots of things that we might like to do, but we need to make sure funding is in place, and I'm certainly happy to work with interested parties on that. And of course there will be a contribution that can come from the department through the Northern Ireland Football Fund.
Mr Honeyford.
Thank you. The UK government recently announced that it was putting 900 million into investment in the major events and grassroots facilities. The Minister's talking in a previous answer about political delay, but 500 million of that was delivered for Euro 2028 that we're now going to miss out on. With 400 million for grassroots, can the Minister outline what steps he's taken to ensure that grassroots sports right across here can fully fund and take benefit of that fund?
Yes, and I have met with my sporting ministerial counterparts in the rest of the UK. I'll continue to do that, and I'll certainly be an advocate for Northern Ireland getting its fair share in terms of sport.
Clark.
Speaker, and I don't know, Minister, if you're listening to the previous question time, where the Minister for the Environment discussed the climate changes in terms of the bill and the court case last week. Of course, he's putting the blame on the DUP for warning everyone else in terms of what they could do by supporting that. That said, Minister, what concerns will you have with that recent court ruling in terms of your responsibilities for delivering social housing and building works going forward?
Well, look, I've started to take some legal advice in relation to this and the implications that it will have, but I am deeply concerned about what this may mean for Northern Ireland, in particular for house building as well. We are in a position now, as a result of the mess that went on in 2022, rival bills coming forward to this Assembly, some parties, including Sinn Féin, the SDLP and the Alliance, that were tripping over themselves to out-green the Green Party, have left us in this mess, and we have to deal with the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in, the targets that are now there, and the legislative requirements that are upon us. So I think that this could have an impact not just on major infrastructure projects, but anything that we seek to build. If it is seen to not line up with our plans, and if it's seen not to line up with the legislation, we could be in difficulty.
Mr Clark.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that answer. And given what you've said in terms of all of your executive colleagues, in terms of how they pontificate at that different time with competing bills, what confidence have you then in terms of this when it goes back to the executive about trying to find a solution so you can deliver the housing that everyone calls upon in this chamber for you to do?
Well, Mr McCrossan has called for an emergency fix to deal with the issue of the A5. That's not going to be enough. That's why I've written to the Agriculture Minister, Andrew Muir, and I have asked him to bring forward amending legislation to the Climate Change Act so that we can put in place policies that actually take account of the difficult situations that we have now been placed in. This is something I've been warning about for some time. It is inevitable that this would have happened. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, and we need to rectify the situation. I know it takes political bravery to say we got it wrong, that we rushed on this, that we let ourselves get into a difficult position at the end of the mandate. We've done it many times in this place before. We've made a mistake. The important thing is that we recognise that it was a mistake and put into place solid action. There's a lot of talk about experts and the need to talk to experts and listen to experts. But we ignored the experts. We ignored the Climate Change Committee back in 2022 because we were driven by ideology and we were driven by political considerations instead of what is best for the people of Northern Ireland, and it has come back to bite us.
Populism.
Minister, has emergency planning and rest centres been discussed recently with local councils?
Not recently, as far as I'm aware.
Minister, in light of the recent racist violence in Ballymena and the resultant damage to Larne Leisure Centre, can you outline what direct engagement you've had with the Mid and East Antrim Borough Council regarding repairs to the facility and the housing executive support for those dispatched?
Yes, I have engaged with the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. I haven't engaged directly as Minister with Mid and East Antrim Borough Council in relation to these issues.
I can't call on the Minister's allocated fund, the Orange Fest, so I'm requesting the Minister for a breakdown of how the 40,000 will be used to fund the Orange Fest.
I don't have the information as how that is funded down. Perhaps you'll want to contact Orange Fest and see how that money will be used.
Okay, just follow up and appreciate the answer, Minister, but can you give us an outline of how any of this will be measured, given the spend?
Well, obviously there's a review of all of the spend in the department and ensuring that it matches up with what it is that we are trying to do. But I know from having met with the organisers and being at the launch last week that they're wanting to make this more accessible. They want to bring more people in. I think they should be congratulated for that. They should be supported for that. And I hope that many, many people right across Northern Ireland, and indeed those outside of Northern Ireland, will see what we have to offer in terms of the rich musical, cultural and historical traditions that we have.
Thank you. That concludes questions to the Minister for Communities. We finished ahead of time, and there's 28 supplementary questions answered and potential for more, but I'd finished that ahead of time too. So, Mr. O'Dowd's listening intently there, so thank you for that. We're now moving on to the next item of business. I received notice from the first, not there yet, Mr. O'Dowd. I've received notice from the Minister of Finance that he wishes to make a statement. Minister.